All right, we are now recording. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between or tween. It's 4:45 for me. It's 7:45 for Finn and his client over in Ohio. It has been a long time since we've had Finn on the podcast, and well, it's good to have him back. And we've been also meaning to do something like this. So shout out to the client who's willing to be there and have his skin poked live on the podcast, basically. But it's not live.
Choice.
What's that?
I didn't give him a choice. I was like, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, you know, that's how it works. Like, as long as he's okay with it, and as long as, you know, I'm sure if we don't show his face, that should be fine. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, well, Finn is also a tattoo artist, so you know we get to see him focused in on his work tonight as well. We get to see him honing his craft and doing what he needs to do currently and for quite a long time to make ends meet. This is what he does. But simply said, Finn also finally released his EP in recent times, Failures of the Flesh, for his band Infectorium, his more or less solo project, but still with instrumentals and everything that could make it mental cruelty-esque, blackened, deathcore, black metal, slam, all that shit. I have not touched this EP because I've been waiting for this session, and well, because of that, a Monday feels like a Friday. So what we're going to go ahead and do is immediately jump into Spotify. We're going to make sure that Ben can also, we're going to make sure that he can hear his own album, and therefore his client can also hear his album, his EP.
Do I listen to myself?
A little bit of an ego trip, no?
Do I have to listen to myself? Jeez.
But we're going to go ahead and get that pulled up. We'll go ahead and get started. And this should be fun, guys. It's honestly, it is the cream of the crop to have our co-host back, 1, 2, to be listening to his EP. So to like really understand what he's been working so hard on for so long. Like we finally get to hear this. I'm ecstatic. I really am. Because this means I can kind of dig into the mind of our co-host, and I can dig into the mind of a fellow vocalist and someone who's trying to accomplish a great many things. And well, we finally got it done. I know I would be very, very, like, I would still be pumped even after the first 2 weeks of this being out, with it released on April 19th. So if we go back in time a little bit, 1, 2, 3, this EP has now been out for 3 weeks, almost a month. Shit's insane. So needless to say, Finn, let me know if you can hear this.
Is it playing?
Yes.
I cannot.
You cannot hear it. Okay. Oh, wait, that's right. That's why. That might help. Okay.
Jesus.
Ooh. Can you hear it now?
Yeah.
All right. Failures of the Flesh. What's up? Oh, your mic's off.
Yeah, I know. I turned it up. Is it,
Okay.
is it really distorted on your end too, or is it just mine?
I think that's just you.
Oh, it's coming in clear on your side?
Yes.
My bad. We were just talking about that. I'm like, man, this is like really distorted.
Wait a minute. Oh, you know what? Maybe it's because of my mic. Let's go ahead and try
You know
that.
what? That probably was it.
I'll
I'm
go
like,
ahead and turn off.
eh.
I'll go and turn off my shift for a second.
I was like, it's never sounded like this before.
Soft lips that gave to his severed kiss. You held my hand in yours for one last time. As the rocks tumbled, we said our last goodbyes. Farewell, my lover. Maybe in another life, we could make this happen. We could be better.
How am I ever supposed to trust you again?
You're not, I guess.
You went a little hardcore. I'm not sure about to throw your chair. You're a little speechless at the moment.
Yeah,
I thought you were gonna have something.
No, I just have my mute muted. Or my mic muted. My mute muted.
Oh, I thought you were gonna pop in with something, be like, "Yeah, it was good, but do gooder,
Do better.
do better."
Don't be sorry, Atreus. Be better. No, that was actually like that was really, really good. That was really fucking solid. And simply said, it's cool after all this time, the way that we met, just both of us being vocalist auditions and stuff, and like you recently being up on stage with Mental Cruelty to do that whole gig, something I know you've been wanting to do for a long time.
Oh yeah.
You being close with the boys too, and then despite all that, you've been having to navigate through all the fucking muck that you've had to trek your feet through and trek your everything through, you still managed to get this EP out. I still have yet to get to track 2 with my own shit, dude. So kudos to you for, despite maybe your lack of resources, like really, really devoting to your craft. Maybe sometimes even instead of like getting food for yourself, because I'm sure this was an investment. But
Yes and no. Like it was interesting. It took me a lot longer than what I would have liked it to take to get it out.
right.
A lot of it was just kind of like having the time to go record and then like waiting for things to come back and mix, from my producer. And then like when things would come back, obviously you don't always get a perfect mix the first time. And especially if you're not sitting there during the mixing process with your producer. So there might be certain things that you may like and they may not like, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a lot of that for a while. Like the first song that was recorded on this EP was Nocturnal Goddess, and that was recorded like fall of last year. And I've just been sitting on this for a while, and I didn't even know if I was going to even do it. To be honest, for a while there, I was dealing with a lot of personal stuff, and was like, I don't even know if I'm going to finish this EP. I might just call it a day on it, and walk away from it. Reviving Infectorium to begin with, like, because that was a personal project of mine. After I had left a project that was semi-serious and like had already been on tours and stuff.
Right.
I didn't even know if I was going to continue, and something just happened and clicked, and I was like, "Fuck it, let's do it." And so me and my producer that I've been working with for 3 years now. Shout out to fucking Blake, aka Nibiru Beats, over at 24 Karat Studios. That dude has been my number one fucking supporter since fucking day one with anything I've done. Like, and it's so funny, like, that we vibe the way that we do, because he predominantly does drill and trap and hip hop and makes beats. And I presented it to him a couple years ago, like, hey, let's record some metal vocals. And at first he was a little hesitant. He's like, I've never really done this before. I don't even know, like, what we're doing. And I had no clue. I'd never worked with any software and DAW before. And that was pretty much it. And it's history since then. We did a whole execrated EP probably like a year or 2 ago now. It's been a little while.
Right.
That's been out for a while too, but it took a lot longer than what I expected it to take and what I wanted it to take. And a lot of it, once again, was just because of like personal life stuff going on. And like, as you can see right now, like even doing this interview, I'm still working right now.
Yeah.
I don't really catch too many breaks, man.
Yeah. That's why you're one of my biggest inspirations right now. It's because you just never fucking stop. So I'm like, you know what? I'm never gonna fucking stop either. So usually these days, I mean, like recently, we haven't been able to have you on because we've been both busy. I've been rescheduling with certain bands. I've just been like, nah, I can't do this today. I need to work. I need to be making money instead of going to concerts and like, technically having fun, doing something that isn't mandatory, but nonetheless kind of a side project, a little bit of homework on a global scale. That's really what this podcast is. Not only is it the David Attenborough, the National Geographic for metalheads, for deathcore kids, for slam kids, or MySpace era deathcore kids, but it's also an opportunity to kind of envelop the world, and not to be too much of an MCU nerd right now, but like create a suit, like as Tony Stark would say regarding Ultron, like creating a suit of armor around the world. For me, it's just like, well, I just want to envelop the world in a cobweb and have all these different bands around the world interconnected by this show. All of them can say that, yeah, we've all told our story on this show. And this one dude, like, he stayed up until midnight. He stayed up until 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes just to do a podcast with us. That way he could tell our stories and he could be a part of that with us. That's the entire point of the show, man, is just to do the homework and to also get on a more personal level, answer some questions maybe that say there are US or European or UK based fans of Miss Mata, which is a fucking basically the Lorna Shore of Malaysia. Who's to say that they don't have the exact same questions that they would for the actual Lorna Shore in regards to this Malaysian incarnation of Lorna Shore? But obviously most people around the world right now, with the economies inflating on a global scale, you can't exactly afford to just leisurely go over to Malaysia and ask questions in person yourself. So instead, that's also why we do what we do. But as I said, tonight's a very special session because not often, never before really, except for Error for Blind Without Our Failures, have we had one of our hosts release a major piece of music. That's big shit, people. That is a big accomplishment. And even if the Execrated EP came out a good chunk of time ago, like Failures of the Flesh is a different animal entirely. There's so much more raw emotion going on with this EP. So I think one important thing to start off after listening to that EP, and of course, whenever Mr. Finn is ready, because after all, he is on the clock as well. He's operating, he's multitasking. I'm surprised his brain hasn't fucking melted by now.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
For me, it's like, since the last time we had you on the show, like what can you tell us has been going on in your life and how things have been kind of folding within themselves, fucking like everything you feel we should know to get caught up on you?
That's a whole lot of personal stuff.
Right.
There's a whole lot of personal stuff, dude. Mostly just working though. I mean, obviously, like the shop I'm at right now is closer to like Cincinnati, and I come out here on Mondays and Tuesdays by appointment. The shop I work at predominantly is in Columbus, and it's usually Wednesdays through Sundays from 12 to 8. So when I say I literally work 7 days a week, sometimes I'm literally working 7 days a week.
It's insane.
Other than the work stuff, just being a dork and going to the fucking gym, dude. I've turned into like one of those gym bros now.
You really have. But no, not only that, but you've turned into the gym orc now, dude. You're fucking gym orced out, bro. Like, it's like sticking out those underbites, sticking out the tusks and shit, just like, time to rip this set apart.
You gotta see this. You gotta see this as soon as I break this down and clean up, dude. You gotta see this ridiculous fucking tub that I carry around with me everywhere, and this is obviously not the same one I had months ago. I swap them out every month or so. It's usually about how long they last. But like the tub of protein powder is like, I swear to God, like it's like carrying a child. It's like a toddler, maybe. I don't know. It's huge. And like I get picked on so much about it. Like when I come into the house or whatever, my roommates will be like, "Dude, are you done carrying that child around? Is that your baby? Like what's going on here, bud?"
Well, it's like I'm not sure if you're supposed to eat your kids. Like, just fucking.
Wait, did you say you're not sure if you're supposed to eat your kids?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know anything in regards to that as far as orc mating rituals and mating habits, but I know certain species of animals will eat their children.
Yeah.
So it kind of varies.
Right.
That plays into so many different things. I could have cracked. Keep those to myself. For the moment, but that was a good one. I'm gonna have like, yes, my baby.
Num 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 num.
Give it 3 times a day. 3 times a day.
Piece by piece.
So
This little munchkin. That is the root of a whole bunch of conspiracy theory based jokes as well. Holy shit.
I mean, to be completely honest, and like we can snip this later in posts or whatever, but I was gonna crack a fucking blowjob joke. You were like, no, babies. Like,
I didn't even think about that.
I have so many questions, and I don't know if I want answers to any of them per se, but
Got 2 words for you: public domain.
Reddit. Subreddit.
Subreddit, exactly.
Subreddit. It's like when I'll jump on some of these like deathcore groups or like these slam groups. I'll fucking. Did you ever watch that episode of Family Guy where like Lois ran for president or whatever, and or what political thing it was, and she's like, her whole thing was just 9/11, and everyone would start like getting hyped up about. So like I'll get on these groups sometimes and fuck with people. I'm like, trigger warning, Lorna Shore, Will Ramos, and like just watch these fucking dudes lose their fucking mind. It's hilarious.
Like the fucking sleeper agent for deathcore elitists.
It's something. I don't know what I would call it, man. I feel like I'm like some kind of sleeper agent or something. I just haven't figured out my exact task yet, you know.
Right. You're still trying to find the code words for your Winter Soldier.
Like if my task was just to like go to the Eiffel Tower and like, you know, fart on the top of the Eiffel Tower, walk out and blame it on everyone else, and like, you know, like let me know so I can go ahead and knock this off my bucket list now. This is now that I think about it, I don't think you've ever even really talked to me much while I've been at work. Like, dude, I'm a completely different personality when I'm not like tired as shit and run down and like, because the last time I was on a podcast that I remember was desoectomy, and I had just gotten back the night before from tour.
Yeah.
I'm like on the podcast with them, like sitting in my car in the passenger seat, just like like trying not to fall asleep, and I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Like, yo, usually I'm doing laundry. I can stay awake. This is fucking tough. I'm like, hang in there, man. That's so funny. I love that.
Shout out to desoectomy too. Those dudes are awesome.
Shout out to the boys in desoectomy. Absolutely. Man, like we have a great many bands that we're hosting this year. Then obviously, like, because as if I'm in the worst relationship ever, like basically, and I'm the bad part of the relationship. I'm shit at communicating, but like I think we should be expecting we're getting a band from Mexico. We're going to be talking again with a band from Russia. There's one from Austria. Like we're still dotting across the planet. And I definitely plan like fucking Japan and China is my next goal after Russia, dude. Like after that, the pieces kind of fall together. I'm thinking like dehumanizing tea tree and worship. That's one from I think either China or Japan. I'm pretty sure they're from China though. So there's them. There's obviously all the bands that I've more or less found through Lucretia. Like so many artists, dude. It's insane. But, what's up?
I'm stoked for this.
Yeah, dude. It's gonna be it's gonna be a good time. It's gonna be a damn good time. But anyways, full circle back to Infectorium, dude. So obviously we understand by this point in the session that it took a long time to finally get the pieces together. I mean, without providing much context as to the like what was going on in those conversations. We have been talking about this EP behind the scenes for a little bit, and just your steps along the way of just like wanting to get this done and there being delays, like and that happens naturally. That's going to happen with any release. So
for sure.
That's the most painful part of it, right? Is just getting it out in the first fucking place. So if I may, who did you end up? Was it Blake that you ended up collaborating with as far as the instrumentals too, or did you have other people helping you with the guitars and the drums for this record?
So, no, me and Blake definitely have talked in the past about doing instrumentals. I'm actually in works. The next EP that I'll be dropping, or the next album, I should say, even single, is going to be me and a buddy of mine here, because Blake does not play any instruments. I just do not have access to a lot of things. So it kind of makes it difficult for me to get a hold of certain things that I necessarily need for that process. So a lot of what I ended up doing was, as corny as this is going to sound, I went through certain instrumentals on YouTube and like figured out how much it was going to cost to get them. And that's, long story short, what I ended up doing for the time being, for the simple fact that I really didn't have access to anything that I needed to record anything, and it made my life rather difficult. Like I said, the next one we'll be doing, it's going to be me and my buddy doing instrumentals on it. We've already got a couple of them we've already been working on. It's going to be interesting because it's in that same vein of Black and Deathcore, but it's going to have a little bit of flair on it too.
Okay.
Left door. What can I help y'all with? Our Piercer's not in today. I'm sorry. She won't be back in until tomorrow. If you want to stop in tomorrow around 12, she should be in. Duty calls.
Right.
I knew it was going to be a piercing. It never fails. But I ended up leasing quite a bit of instrumentals. It's actually not the first bit that I've done like this. Like I did Execrated like that too. Like we've talked before, and me and you, about like previous projects I've been in, and like it would either be 6 to 8 months and we don't even have a half of a set list, even trying to get to that point of a half a set list yet, or they already had a set list but they're not wanting to play shows again, or it was always something that came up, or very hardcore disagreements. And that's kind of why I took the route that I did, to do things on my own. That way I can put something out, let people listen to like what I'm trying to do, and try to kind of go from there to accommodate musicians that like want to work with this style and in this vein. And so far I've actually got about a half of the lineup right now. So live shows are looking like a very good possibility by the end of the year.
Good.
I've pretty much got the lineup set at this point, other than someone to play drums. That's the only thing we're having an issue with at the moment. But that's kind of why I've done things the way that I've done them like that, because of that aspect of things where things are just difficult to find the right people, or maybe you find the right people musically, but like you guys have personal differences, or like we had one guy, like his girlfriend absolutely hated all of us. So we just didn't, it didn't work out, kind of thing. I don't know. It's very interesting to see how things go and how things are going to play out. Jesus, what is today's date? I should know. It's the 6th.
Yeah, 5/6.
5/6. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I'm not very good on, remembering dates and times. You call it like the boring part of my job, where I'm like, I gotta do paperwork now. I gotta say bye to my
good, dude.
I gotta say bye to my client and lock the door, and then do the weird stuff the tattooers do when the doors are locked. Like I'm gonna put on some Taylor Swift.
Catch the algorithm off guard.
I'm gonna catch everybody off guard. All right, my dude. Let me set this down real quick. Thanks, bud. All right, no problem. Let me know when that's healed up and stuff, because I know we have to touch up one of the letters on the other. Gotcha. Hand. So let me know when that's healed, and if anything needs touched up, we can go from there. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. Hey, no problem at all, dude. Absolutely. Dude, I mean, you're welcome to stay as long as you want. I'm just sure that you're like tired of me like torturing you at this point right now. Like, and you're like, you know what? I'm done. you're cool and all, and this is tight, but like, you know, I'm done.
I'm out, he says.
Wowzers. Yeah, dude, it's been an interesting journey. Wow, this is so funny. Like, this is a part of me that like a lot of people don't really get to see. Like when I'm freaking like conscious and like not like, you know, half dead from like going on a micro tour or a trip or something, you know?
Yeah,
I'm just like completely fucking coherent.
right. Speaking of that too, speaking of road trips, did you end up making it out to go see the boys in Wretched Tongues and Fathom?
No, so the venue got changed at the last minute, where they were going to be playing, and I was trying to make arrangements for it, but the person I was supposed to be staying with while I was up there ended up moving out of their place, and like it's actually cool, like good for them, you know, they found their own place, you know, and living on their own now, but it kind of came at a very unfortunate timing. And yeah, the day that I was going to go see them in New York was also my birthday, so
Right.
I was like, oh, cool, I'll figure this out. And then like just ended up not being able to make it out there.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, the same. And that's kind of actually interesting now that I think about it, because we both had obligations, and needless to say, ladies and gentlemen, basically we were planning for me to do a podcast in this same room with Envirulent. And then basically, you know, because it didn't happen, it doesn't really matter. I don't think if we mention it. Finn was actually going to make plans to go out to this show on May 3rd. And he was going to, on behalf of the Anatomy podcast, interview Wretched Tongues and Fathom. So I think it's very interesting that both of us weren't able to fulfill those obligations. But needless to say, I'm sure we will have the ambition necessary and the drive, and you know, if we plan ahead of time a little bit better, most likely we will both be looking to do the exact same thing, just at different times and with different artists, right? Because doing an interview in person is such a different animal compared to just interviewing a band over the phone. And again, because this is a global podcast, because this is an international music history podcast, there's only so much you can do when it comes to bands who are literally across the world and sometimes a day or two ahead of you time zone wise. So for those situations, it's like, yeah, that's definitely something over the phone. I can't exactly fly to Venice tonight, or even Madrid, Spain, to see all the boys in Bone Carver or Heirs of Hatred, Flesh Mauler, any of those guys, Awake Consciousness. The possibilities are quite restricted when, well, both me and Finn are at the level of society that we are. And of course, the inflation I mentioned earlier. Now, no one's really able to do much of anything right now that extravagant, unless if it's to like study abroad or some shit. And even then, you got to make sure you have the fast fit to cover that shit. But I digress. We have a great number of plans that we're trying to put into motion. And let me tell you guys, like, at least 74 bands are waiting in line to jump on this show, whether here in the United States or across the world. People like what we do. Not only that, but I never stop reaching out until I get a response. Some could call it harassment. It's more like just being consistent and like, hey, you know, not trying to bug you, but you want to jump on this show. The moment they say no, that's when you back off. And I've had a couple artists tell me, no, we're not interested, go away. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just move on. But for the most part, people want the opportunity to tell their stories. And that's why we're here. And then we're not like the divine one solution podcast per se. But what I will say is that I wholeheartedly believe that we have like more authentic intentions with our podcast, as opposed to the kind of clickbait shit that other podcasts do. And of course, now I got to be that confident in my work, you know, got to put a little bit of gusto in there, as opposed to just like, yeah, I mean, we're another podcast, but That's cool. It's like, no, we're here to be the fucking Nat Geo of the metal community. So anybody who wants their story told in a very deep, authentic, intimate way, like, you come to the Anatomy podcast. Like, you don't really go to the other podcasts because that's more or less the clickbait shit. Even I don't know how you feel about this, because I guess we might as well get into this segment, co-host to host. Like, are we on the same page with that as far as like the other podcasts? You know, like, what are your thoughts on the other shows in the community? Do you even have the time to listen to those that often?
Not really,
No.
dude.
Sure.
I mean, I've watched some of them. I guess it kind of varies. Like, I feel like there is a very intimate level of like how we interview people and stuff, and like we try to get more in depth with things as far as like on a personal level with things, which is why, you know, some people either get weirded out or, you know, they end up being like, you know, like, once again, shout out to Desoectomy again. It's like, to become best friends. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
like, dude, I think we talked for like another hour after we stopped recording.
Exactly.
Like, just because it was ridiculous, like how well everything meshed. So that's one of the things too that's like, I feel like it could be a burden or a blessing.
Yes.
Depending on who we're interviewing and like where their mental headspace is about things, you know, certain things, like, because there are definitely some touchy subjects that people may not want to talk about, you know, and there's definitely some subjects, especially when you get into something like this where it's an artistic platform of things, and like people are getting very personal and raw with what they're writing and how they're feeling, you know, it can get a little touchy sometimes.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah, no, I can definitely agree. And if anything, I compare, oftentimes, this is just me personally, I compare other podcasts that I've heard, whether it be the Garza podcast or the Hardcore Keem show, which I only really watched an episode of that. And I think I've seen a couple of Nick Nocturnal's podcast sessions, but that's really about it. And then Rockfeed is also jumping on the podcast train. I'm like, dude, you already do news. What do you need? Like, what more do you need? Like, you got one of the biggest news channels ever. And like, you know, you're just doing more or less like casual on the road podcast sessions, the same way that we've done a couple times, you just driving on the road, and or me and you just being on the phone, same exact thing. I'm like,
right.
You know, I don't know. For me, I see all these other bands trying to chase after the same high that Keemstar had, because he was one of the first people to do what he did with the band interviews that he did. The only issue is with him, and the reason that he's kind of not relevant anymore, or at least not to my eyes, not in my algorithm, not in my demographic, is because, well, allegations beat behind the scenes, one, but two, he had no fucking regard for the questions that he was asking. Like, he had no empathy, and he was there just to get all the clickbait shit, as if he was TMZ for emo kids or some shit. And I'm like, that's where I draw the line. You know, I have respect for the guests that we have on the show. You'll never hear me ask someone like, is this song about you wanting to kill yourself? Do you still want to? It's like, no, what the fuck? You don't ask people that.
No,
for me, it's like, you know, what advice were you in? Yeah, it varies person by person, because perspective is sharper and it requires more pressure throughout the entirety of someone's life than diamonds, or, you know, just breaking it down to diamonds require a lot of pressure. But then the result is something beautiful. It's something authentic that required a lot of hard work, biologically speaking, chemically speaking, really, at the centers of the earth. But yeah, I don't know. It's just like, and a part of me, dude, I remember when I first started this show, and not too long after the Anatomy podcast was a thing, and like, we started out fucking strong, getting Tom Cadden and Jack Simeone from To the Grave on the show, and then Greg Gilbert after all the Shrine shit happened. And after that, I think it was Distant, David Simonich from Signs of the Swarm. Like, we went strong right out the fucking gate, and that's not even including the first Warm Shepherd session I did with Devin, where it was just me and him, and this is where I was renting time at a what is it? was the best way to describe it. It was like an anime store, but it was also a Magic the Gathering spot, but it was also a vape shop, but it was also a snack shop and a figurine shop. And they had this like booth where they actually hosted like the English voice actors, the dub voice actors for like the Dragon Ball cast and shit. They would host them in that room. And I said, you know what? Like that could be a decent investment with me working at home, just renting out this room. So I did that for 2 different episodes and they fucked up. Not going to name the company because that would just be cruel. Their editor was not an editor. He compacted my debut recording session with Devin Duarte and then Kyler Cheek of the Stygian Complex. He managed to completely trash one of them and compacted the other session, which was like 2 hours, into 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? So not even including that, we went out the gate strong. But it was weird because as soon as this show started getting traction, I noticed that every other fucking metal reacting content creator was also making podcasts. I'm like, wait a minute. It was just weird timing. It was really, really weird timing. But oh well, that was a long time ago. Podcasts aren't exactly a rare thing to occur. And when you have a platform, when you want to talk with these musicians, and as you continue growing as a musician, you get access to more people, you get access to more personalities. It's bound to happen. It was just like the timing was so weird. But nonetheless, I take pride in the time that we take basically becoming, if nothing else, one of the longest podcasts episode by episode.
Which brings me to my point. Like,
Yes.
I didn't my birthday Thursday. I've got like 4 dozen people hitting me up like, "Are you in town? I want to take you out for a drink. Are you in town? Are you in town?" Like, yes, I'm in town. What do you want? Like, I'm gonna be real, dude. My birthday kind of sucked. I got stuck working, and then like I took one of my friends out, and by taking my friend out, I mean like I had to go pick them up. They didn't have a car, which is fine. They also failed to tell me like the entire time we were out that they had no money, so I paid for their food and their drinks. And
Like,
then,
yeah, happy birthday.
I was like, sweet. This is tight. This is what I wanted.
This is great.
But yeah, I was already having a pretty rough day to begin with because of the work thing and some other personal shit, and I was like, man, this sucks. and like I wasn't like done hanging out. Like, I was like, fuck, let's go somewhere and fucking like have a few drinks or something. They're like, no, I need to go home, and I'm like, cool. So like, I spent like $60 on food and like drinks and stuff for you on my birthday, and like I can't even go to the next bar I want to go to like bar. I don't have a DD. I don't have shit. Like, because I had told her, I was like, let's go to the next bar and like I'm gonna shoot some pool and have a few drinks. It'll give you like a couple hours to sober up, and then you could DD me. She has a license,
Yeah. No, that's fucked, dude.
So
Like,
some of my friends here are not so great. So it was like, all right, fuck it. And I went home, went to work the next day, and then I ended up taking Saturday off, and I just spent all day like in bed. Like I'm like, I don't even want to fucking do anything. Like the combination of being exhausted, like just super bummed out. I'm like,
oh my god. That's so sad. That's depressing. But like, here's the thing. It's good to be able to like recognize and acknowledge that shit and be like, man, that fucking sucked. That's like the lowest of the low as far as celebrations for myself. I'm gonna do better next year. I'm going to top it. I'm going to top it threefold. And I might just fucking do it by myself. Dude, last year for me, November 3rd, the week and going into the weekend of November 3rd, I almost died because me and my buddy's camp were getting stalked by skinwalkers and shit. Like, dude, I cannot tell you how terrified I was of dying that night. And then because I have precog and premonitions and shit, I have dreams about it too. So that was fucking great. But most importantly, that weekend, that's when Silent Planet's
Oh, you muted yourself again. There you go. You still muted, but
Monkey say, Monkey Joe. So who the fuck made you? Uh-oh. Oh, right. I can't hear you.
Oh,
now.
you're good. You're good now.
Hold
Sorry.
on.
I
You're good.
still doing the whole work thing, and like my boss is super chill. So like sometimes I'll buy a 6-rack of PBR and put it in the fridge here. So like after hours, I'll just like I have nothing else to do. I'll just sit here and drink a beer after work, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's a good way to decompress.
Yeah, good way to decompress. PBR. I don't think I've actually had a PBR yet.
Sponsor me. Sponsorship.
Sponsorship, exactly.
Let's get a PBR sponsorship for the Anatomy podcast.
Let's do it.
PBR and Liquid Death.
PBR and Liquid Death, baby.
Or
No,
PBR
you know what?
Body Art.
Fucking Gamerceps, bro. I don't think you've tried Gamerceps yet. This shit's bomb. And especially when you put a sparkling Liquid Death in it and you stir it just enough where the flavor's in there. Dude, it is the healthiest soda I've ever had. Yeah, there you go. And then you got your way. You're like, yo, can't forget my protein, bro.
just, let me toss some of this protein shake and this creatine in my beer.
Jesus. Imagine putting those Fruity Pebble whey that mix into Gamers.
Why did that make me think of Mr. Pickles?
Mr. Pickles!
It's not just beer, it's beer roids.
I haven't watched that show because it's demented, but Mr. Pickles.
I think that was the whole premise of that show. That was the whole point. It was just like to be really fucked up.
Right. Fucking the kid walking down the street with the big gahungas. He turns around, the black guy's like, damn! Such good.
Oh my
shit.
god, that show was ridiculous. I love
It
it.
seemed ridiculous. It seemed like a fucking cocaine trip or something like that. Like, I don't know, bro. It's the Adult Swim creators are on something else, dude.
I mean, I guess so. Like, I don't know. This reminded me of like some of the stupid shit I've said and done. And I'm like, you know what? It's not nearly as bad in context. Like, dude, I have like worst pickup lines ever. It's like no wonder you get a second date. You know, like I start off strong. You know, they're like, "Oh, you're heavily tattooed. You're in good shape. You work out." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm a deathcore vocalist."
Like, ew.
That's red flag. That's red flag number one. They're like, okay. They're like, you know what? Maybe I'll let this go on for a little while. And then like my pickup lines are just terrible. So like by like 15 minutes into the date, they're just like, God, I can't wait for this to be over. Blocking him as soon as I get out of the car. You fucking derpy dumb shit.
Nah, bro. It's all about that orc love in the house, in the Anatomy podcast house, baby. We are all about that Tusk love, bro. Elon Tusk.
Elon Tusk.
That's a Rick and Morty thing. That's not original by any
No, I know what you mean. It just made me think of the whole mid-six thing with me and Deegan being on a track, and Zach had edited a photo. It was like a father and son photo.
Yeah. I saw that.
You saw them. Okay. So like I posted it. I was like, don't talk to me and my son again. Like the first time I posted it, like almost a year ago now. And like, fucking who was it? Somebody commented on the original post. They're like, well, this checks out and makes sense. Orcs do have nipples.
God, that's so great. Congrats to Deegan, by the way. He managed to get into this band called Digest the Womb. So he like got taken on as like a serious vocalist and shit. Congrats to you, buddy. Hopefully we can get you on the show sometime here soon and interview Digest the Womb as well. Get some more Texas local talent on here. Shout out to Conjured. Love those boys. Like it's here's the thing. Here's the thing I'm worried about with this show. Because I've done that a couple times now where like I think of bands from different states, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's this band and this band and this band that we've also had on the show. Shout out to you guys. Like, eventually, it's gonna get into like the hundreds, right? As far as the episode count, or maybe even the 200s. And I'm gonna have to just take like half an hour to make shout outs to all the bands we've already hosted, state by state by state, country by country. Like, we're coming for your bands.
We're coming for something, right?
Yeah, we're coming for everybody. We're coming for everybody.
I'm coming for all the dudes.
See, yeah. Yep.
Like, let me get some of that bro love. That's what I need.
Let me get some of that bro love, especially like, dude, the bro love that we had with Desoectomy was so fucking iconic. And then me and what is it? Fucking Zach Atwell from Conjured calling the episode our first date. Just like, I didn't bring flowers. I'm sorry. I'm like, it's okay. You're fine. Like,
I forgot my wallet.
I forgot my wallet. Paid the whole entire fucking bill. Can you get me all the bill, the food? Can you give me an Uber home?
So that's why we've been sitting here for 4 hours at this restaurant and continuously ordering food back to back, is because we both forgot our wallets. That's silly.
Just like just a little glass of coffee or tea, just like I tip my cup to that.
You got to get the mustache curl in with
Yeah.
it. Oh.
Dude, oh my god, I need to grow out mine again. Like, dude, I know yours is looking great, bro.
I just need to shave it all off.
No, don't do that. Please. Because then I'll be encouraged to shave mine off.
What was it? Who the other day they were like, man, you're like a buff tattooed Jesus.
Who also black-faced. I'm kidding.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. I literally all right, so the first time I went viral on TikTok, and this was like, God, this had to have been like 2018. I think it was one of the first years TikTok had came out.
Yeah.
And that I was aware of it anyways. I literally got like, I went viral. I think in like less than 24 hours, I had like 1.2 million views on this one video. And it was just me talking about like tattooing and shit. And literally most of the fucking comments were people that were like that. They were like, man, it's awful bold to go out in public like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, making comments like that towards me. I'm like, this is not what this is. Like,
Here's the thing. One, I'm not Justin Trudeau. Two, it's only 2/3. It's not all 3/3. So you're fine. Calm down. Three, it's green. It's not even black. Like,
right. Like, no, I get that a lot. I got that a lot. And then like, just typical, like, hey, you ruined your whole life. You should just go kill yourself. I'm like, oh, cool. I haven't heard this like 1,000 times. Listen, there's nothing that you can tell me that I haven't said to myself 3 inches in front of my mirror.
I quote, guess like human meat is back on the menu, boys. For fucking Lord of the Rings.
God, I love that I just cracked a little wiener joke and like nobody caught it. There's nothing 3 inches in front of my mirror. I started doing stand up a little bit, like,
do it, bro.
The bar. There's a bar right down the road from me, and I started doing like stand up and shit.
Do it. That's awesome.
No, it's so funny because like the demographic that loves my comedy is not the demographic like I would have expected, because like a lot of my comedy is like very vulgar and lewd, and it's really funny that the demographic that likes my comedy because it's just like wow. I wouldn't have expected that out of you.
Love that shit. Well, let's see. Trying not to like be in the fucking ether of a collective hive mind, that being, the creature that is the logo, right? Between the both of us. So we discussed earlier, we kind of mentioned that it was a collective effort and that it wasn't exactly hiring any musicians, like any official musicians. It was more or less like program shit, right? For the instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, moving forward, you have indeed acquired musicians for both the live setting And are they the same musicians for in studio from now on? Okay, fuck yeah, dude, that's awesome.
Yep.
So who like, obviously without name dropping anybody, have you like known these people for a long time? Are they connected to other projects?
Two of them are connected to other projects. Well, technically all three. The one dude is just kind of done things on his own for a while. Really heavy into black metal, so it's mostly been solo black metal stuff.
Okay.
The other dude right now is, and I'm not going to mention any names, but he is currently filling in for another band that is doing a cruise line event and has been doing a cruise line event for several weeks now. So he's gotten to see quite a bit of the country and quite a bit of like the islands and stuff right now. And is funny. I'm not, once again, not going to mention any names, but like he was making comments about how he got to be in one of the opening bands for Creed for like several weeks. And he's like, yep, dad rock, here for it. You know?
Yeah.
No, he's an insanely good guitar player. And I've known him for a couple of years now. We've dabbled in the idea of working together, and it's always just been like right for me, wrong for him, wrong for me, right, you know, like time wise and stuff. And finally it's syncing up, and so that's been nice. The other dude that's going to be playing bass, I've been working on and off with him on other projects and stuff for a while, so it's nothing new. I've probably known him the longest out of all of them. So
sick. I mean, these are people you have history with, and like the planets are finally aligning for the Infectorium and its collective. Like that's fucking awesome, dude. I can only imagine too that. Well, I'm not going to mention that because that's just like that might as well be a fucking bomb. Just stuff that we've been talking about behind the scenes. That
for sure.
Yeah. So if you want to, what we could do. Because more or less, like we just haven't seen you in a long time, man. We missed you. We missed having you on the show. We missed having our good old Orc King on the show. So we definitely had to get caught up, figure out what's been going on. Why have you been gone? But now you're back.
Wait for you to get back.
So now I think what would be really cool is if we went under the skin of Failures of the Flesh, if you're open to that.
Absolutely.
Cool. So same way that we've been doing with every goddamn band you've been in session for, or maybe you've listened to other episodes. You know how this works, man. Let's go ahead. What do you want to do? Are we going to go into the woods and find a shrine like we did with Parasitic Embodiment? Are we going to go into a library again? Like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go?
You tell me.
Okay.
I'm just kind of here, you know?
Right. Okay. Well, because Infectorium, right? Because of the darker, more decrepit aspects, and the fact that, well, most of the time that you've been on the show, you've been in a cemetery. You've been walking around a cemetery because you're a little edgy orc boy. Let's go into a cemetery, and for whatever fucking reason, we decide to unearth the belongings of someone. There happens to be a book, and the first page is kind of this old, decrepit, like almost fuzzy texture, right? Like when paper really starts to deteriorate, but it's not fading, it's not crumbling to ash, it's just fuzzy. You see a fuzzy paper sheet with the cover, with the album cover, with the EP cover for Failures of the Flesh, right? And maybe the old English, the shiny metallic old English font is not on the front, but you know what this is. There's a reason you're there to unearth this book. It maybe was left behind by one of your loved ones or someone who is connected to a secret effort that you were also involved in. And they're like, well, be prepared to dig up the book. Dig up the book and bow, like, you know, embrace the failures of the flesh, whatever the situation may be. So you find the CP cover and, well, you open it. Or you go to the back, right? Because we have to turn the back and see the little summary. Maybe even more specifically, because this is your fucking EP, right? You're the one who wrote on the back. and more or less you're just looking at that to remember what happened during the EP, during the events that would culminate into this EP, what would be the chunk of text on the back of your book on Failures of the Flesh?
Man, I'm gonna use an excerpt, 2 excerpts from 2 songs off the EP, to describe this the best way possible. So, Failures of the Flesh, it was a very personal album for me, despite the fact that like what anybody feels about, you know, the quality of this or the quality of that or whatever, and how anybody feels about it. It was a very personal thing for me because like some of the subject matter I talked about, even if it was almost in code, essentially, I may have said certain things that were obvious. There may have been certain audio clips that were in certain songs that had actually been from actual videos where, you know, were personal things that I'd actually input into these songs. But 2 of the main things that I would put on the back of that cover would be that I'm sorry that I was the cancer pumping through your veins, and that this will never be the same again. And the second insert would be, I'm sorry that I was the disease, but I was the one that you needed.
I like that.
That is the best way I can put it.
Right. And obviously, you know, there's so much raw sadness and, you know, just kind of negative shit that happened. And more or less, I can kind of piece things together because of the short time that I've known you and because of what we personally talked about. So why those 2 statements, they match together really well. They regard you as the disease, but every story where you talk about a disease, it's like to a certain degree, it was necessary, right? It was necessary. It had its place in that story. So why compare yourself to a disease?
It's not that I personally feel that way myself. It's that when certain people come into your life, whether it be family, platonic, romantic, it doesn't matter. Certain people will come into your life, and there comes a point in certain aspects of this where it may be right, it may not be right, it may be great, or it may end up turning very toxic and very sour and south very quickly. And one of the things that I'm very guilty of is even if it wasn't entirely my fault, you know, it takes 2 to tango. In almost every situation, it takes 2 to tango. Even if it wasn't necessarily my fault, I still shoulder that blame. And that's been a deep-rooted thing that I've done even since I was a child, is I will shoulder that blame for things that maybe I shouldn't, but I still do because it's just ingrained in me to be this way. And there was, I mean, like, it's so sneaky because, like, there's so many things that I snuck in with this EP that, like, people don't even get. And if I broke it down right now, like, it would make more sense. But even the date it was released had a meaning. It had to be that day. It was a particular date that was relevant to what this EP was about, at least a good portion of it. And it's there was a lot of things that I put into this EP and a lot of things I was very personal about that, like, if you know me and you know my history, especially the last 5 years, you know, generally speaking, what some of this context is about.
Right.
Some of it obviously was, you know, me writing feelings out. Some of it was things that, like, flow together with that certain thing to play into the story. But it was probably the most raw thing that I've ever released at this point to date. And I've released some pretty personal shit, but nothing quite to this caliber of things, to like something that literally shaped me as a person, how I am now, and left me with scars that I will never forget.
Right.
And that's part of the reason, once again, why it was even called Failures of the Flesh.
you know, because when I broke down everything, I was like, you know, I failed this situation. I failed this. I failed this and this, but I'm only human at the end of the day. So failure's the flesh.
Yeah, exactly. There's only so much you can do in the flesh, and there's only so much you can try to escape and avoid before you just kind of end up running into walls. And you have to live through failures. You have to live through times that kind of balance you out as a human being. Like, even me, I've done some pretty stupid shit. I've done some pretty heartless shit. But for the most part, it is to such an insignificant scale and tier that it's like, dude, I've done some fucked shit, but I've more than made up for most of that. I've more than made up for most of that stupid shit that I did back in like junior high. Like, all you can try to do is atone. All you can try to do is repent. And then you don't even have to be a monotheist to use those words, right? Like, you can, because most of us, because me and Finn at least, we're from here in the United States. Like, we all know what those words mean. It means to take accountability for your bullshit. Like, if you fucked up, you fucking make up for it. And you make sure that the people and things and places and times that were affected in a bad way, you make sure that you make things right where you can. And then where you can't, well, let bygones be bygones. You got to move on. You cannot be a ghost. You can't be a phantom and be stuck in the past for too long.
And that's an important aspect too. Like where you're going in with that is like accountability, but like accountability goes both ways too. You know, especially in situations that are so tense, or, you know, two-sided on things where, you know, you get two heads that are just together, you know, and they're both headstrong individuals. It goes both ways. Like, it kind of goes back to Newton's law. You know, every action is going to have a reaction. So if somebody's reacting a certain kind of way, like, it might not have been the proper way to react to that, but there's something that caused that reaction, whether it be in that present moment or the past, or something that caused that to happen at that point. And as long as, you know, if it wasn't the proper way to react to certain things, the person that had the reaction apologizes, you know, for reacting the way they did, and holds the accountability for that, then I feel like it's only necessary at that point, you know, that the other person involved in that situation would also hold that accountability. Like, you know what, maybe I could have done X, Y, Z better as well, you know. And and that's the thing about the human experience that a lot of people don't fucking get, is like, everybody wants to, and the thing it's most common in, unfortunately, is romantic entanglements and relationships, where people want to say, well, my ex is crazy, or this girl's crazy, or this boy's crazy, or whatever. But like, there's certain aspects to everything, like, and none of us are saints. No matter how much we try to be, none of us are fucking saints. We all make mistakes. We all do things that we regret doing. It's a matter of holding ourselves accountable for the things that we do and the things we've said and did, and trying to grow from that situation and be a better person, whether it's with that same person or with someone new or on our own. We have to grow. And that was basically what this album was to me. It's ironic, this conversation, because that's what this album was to me, was a growing experience, and putting my past behind me and certain situations behind me that I needed to put behind me and let go of, because I had been holding on to so much emotion from that I needed to let go of.
Yeah.
Whether it does well, it does well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, I needed to do it regardless. So it was something that I needed to let go of. And in the particular couple of situations it had to do with, like, you know, once again, I wasn't a saint either, but I took accountability for what I did and what I said. And whereas the other person decided to go a different route and refused to acknowledge anything. So, I mean, it is what it is. And this was my way of kind of getting it out of my system, where I'm like, I won't ever think about this again.
Right. You know, after we do the podcast.
well, no, I mean, like, in general, I even now, a lot of things, like I said, like you were asking about the catch up and stuff, what I've been doing, like, a lot of things have changed in the sense of, like, I'm doing mentally better. There have been a few times where I've, you know, obviously we're human, we get bummed out about certain things and certain aspects, but there's been a lot of things I've grown stronger from in the process, and especially getting this off of my chest, and a lot of the subject matter. I know what's coming up at some point here in this interview and then podcast. You're going to ask about.
contexts of songs and like meanings behind things, and like, and there's a deep rooted meaning behind every one of them. Aside from the intro,
Okay. So
even the fucking intro, honestly,
even
even the intro, there was a meaning behind certain things we added to that, even though there was no lyrical content. But I mean, regardless, I'm jazzed to get this out and get it out of my system to where I'm like, you know what, it's been talked about, it's done. Leave it in the past where it needs to be. Move forward with your life. You know, pick your fucking head up and keep moving.
Yeah. And here's another beautiful thing that I kind of wanted to like bring to attention with the podcast. No context necessary. I remember when this EP first came out, and I'm like, hey, blind with that are failures of the flesh. Like,
That's
hey.
actually really fucking clever, and I love it.
Yeah, like honestly, and I thought about it, and I'm like, dang, in an alternate dimension right now, because like I have an idea. There was an idea, a plan to bring amazing group of people together. Quoting Nick Fury, fucking, I'm such an MCU nerd. No, I was thinking of doing, and to be honest, I'm thinking of doing the same thing in this reality. Having these different EPs that future members of Blind compose, they write, and basically it reflects upon their greatest failure. It reflects upon their greatest obstacle that they had to overcome to be a better person. And I'm like, wait a minute. But that's besides the point.
For sure.
There's no connection. At this time, at least, it's just like it's cool to see how similar our brains work, creatively speaking, lyrically speaking. So we have the reason for the album title or the EP title. We have the main concept behind it. We have two excerpts from two different songs reflecting upon your own perspective on the matter and how you try to humble yourself as a person in the moment, right? Throughout the course of events. So now we dig into these 6 tracks, starting with Enteritus. What do we got going on here, bud?
So Enteritus was the intro. Actually a riff from one of the other tracks that we had taken and slowed down the intro for, just to make the intro for the album.
Right.
We did add some stuff into it that wasn't there initially. The fire crackling, the chains, and the woman laughing. And the woman laughing was probably the most significant thing about it, because what this album has to do with would have been relevant to that, like laughing at the trauma that was inflicted. So that's pretty much the gist of that. There's not really much else to that. It was just a little clever thing that we threw in there just to kickstart the album off, you know.
And what do you know what Enteritus means?
So it's actually, from what I understand, my producer was the one that because he created the instrumental for it, essentially. It's, if I recall correctly, I want to say he's.
Ooh, okay. The connection cut out for a second, so I missed the last part.
Oops, sorry. From what I understand, from what he told me, it's Arabic, I believe.
Oh. Okay.
I'm not really entirely sure. I would have to ask him about it. I know when we started doing it, and started naming stuff, it we knew what the definition of it was, but at the time I'm like drawing a blank because it's been a little while. So I can't give an exact answer, but I'm pretty sure it was Arabic.
Interesting. So in that case, let's go ahead and use Google Translate here real quick. Let's see if we can pull something up, because I think that would be really cool. So let's see. Arabic.
I'm pretty sure.
Indebtedness. Yeah.
Is it Arabic?
Hold on. Imperatus. Let's see. No. You know what? That sounds Latin. That sounds really Latin. Just like indebtedus. Yes, somebody. You know. Latin.
It is Latin.
Let's go ahead.
It is
Aha.
Latin. Sorry.
For destruction.
For destruction and disillusion. That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. He's really big into like looking into deep things. Like sometimes I leave the naming stuff up to him because that's what this dude does for a living, is like recording stuff, and like he'll sit and he'll get on the dark side of YouTube for like hours and I won't hear shit. Be like the next day I'll get a message back like, dude, did you know like these 50 facts about like whatever it is? And like, so I kind of leave a lot of it to him because of that, because like he's a really smart dude and he's really fucking clever. So that actually checks out. I let him name a good portion of things that I do.
Fair enough. Okay. So then we immediately jump over to track 2, which is convergence. Let's see.
Convergence.
Oh yeah.
Convergence
I cut out for
is
a second.
the oldest track that I have on this album. I recorded Convergence back in 2022, and I had recorded it at the time. I was still involved in a very toxic relationship at the time, and I was sober at the time because I had been made to believe that that even if I came home from work and had a beer, probably because of that, and I was out of control, and there's a lot of manipulation and shit during that time frame, and a lot of really toxic behavior exerted towards me, and which turn, you know, led to me really shutting down mentally. One of the excerpts for that, the back of the album, for the whole album, I would say, like, comes from that, and that was the line like, maybe I'm the cancer pumping through your veins. All I know is it isn't the same. And you know, there were several things like that were exerted in the song, like lyrically, like the good in me has died, macerated, left behind, cold and lifeless eyes set to survive. You know, it was a very heavy feeling at the time, you know, feeling like I had to do these things because someone was in my head so heavily that like I had to be this person. And there was a while there that I actually you know, I actually believed certain things and about myself even that I didn't know were true or false or whatever, or perspective. And that's where the term convergence comes in, you know, like converging with yourself and becoming, you know, looking back at past situations, it's still relevant. And that's why I decided to use it, you know, like certain, like I said, certain lines, or the other line from it, you know, I can never forgive myself, you know, for who I used to be and what I used to be, whether that was X, Y, or Z, you know, and that's kind of where that came into play.
Fair enough. Yeah. And it's a different animal when you are deep into a relationship, because I mean, I can't exactly say that I was ever being manipulated in this last relationship. So, disclaimer, that's not what I'm saying to those who may be listening. Don't get the wrong idea. My last relationship concluded because the person was just comfortable being in a darker place, and I didn't want to be there with them. You know, I was trying to help pull them out, and you know, it was a little bit difficult to continue being there with them when they did not care to get out of where they were at all. And that darkness, like, it started like kind of following me a little bit. I'm like, nope, I want to unplug right now. You know, you don't want to meld with that darker comfort. And of course, for me, my ultimate comfort, my ultimate peace is just, I can't see anything level darkness. I can't feel anything level cold. And then, well, silence without the tinnitus.
Right.
So it, of course, those darker things, those darker ideas have always been my comfort zone because, well, being in Arizona, being in Phoenix, where 90% of the year it's clear, sunny days, even during the winter. You have the monsoon that comes through, and that makes things kind of humid. And as the years progress, it's humid with smog or dust. We have our haboobs that come through, which are giant, just fucking farts of dust. And sometimes rain goes through that and it turns to actual fucking mud rain. It's so gross. So I think over time, naturally, I felt and I developed an affinity towards just darkness. And it sounds so fucking stupid and edgy, but
I get it. I get it. Dude.
like when you're forced to be around sunny days all the time and very little, it's like actually rain is a miracle, trees are a miracle. Of course you just want to like disappear off into the woods, dude. Like that's just gonna happen. Needless to say, it's never good to be in a relationship and feel like you're kind of losing your own personality in the process. That shit is dangerous. So that's kind of like the commentary I'll provide with that, because I you know what? No, I take it back. Not this last relationship, but there was one person in which her friends were even telling me like, hey, she's trying to change you, bro. She's trying to control you. And this was in high school, dude. But she was like kind of this bubblegum personality, like K-pop enthusiast and shit. And I was like a stoner metalhead listening to Asking Alexandria and shit. And like really the breaking point was me smoking weed with her friends without giving her, quote, a 2-week notice, as if me being in a relationship with her was a job. I'm like, absolutely not. This is not what I signed up for. And that's she actually split things off because, you know, me and her friends collectively reacted the way that we did. We said, hey, that's not right. Like, I don't need to give you a 2-week notice to smoke weed. It's harmless. And these are your friends. I'm not smoking with random women who, for some reason, find me that charismatic and want certain things with me. It's like, nobody's going to want that with me. So you're fine. You have no competition, but nonetheless, just because of the way that they were living at the time, and because of the mindset that they were in at the time, I think that they were just trying to have higher standards in life, and therefore they wanted me to just exponentially climb with them when there wasn't really anything wrong with the life I was living. It was just very strange, but I mean, I'm glad it didn't get worse than what it was. And this was in high school, you know, this was maybe a month long relationship at bat, and that's it. But now looking back, it's like, yeah, that was probably the most I've ever been manipulated in a romantic relationship. And it's very strange to think that happens sometimes, you know?
Oh, it's definitely a thing. I mean, it definitely happens, and it happens a lot more frequently than people talk about, you know? And it takes its toll.
It definitely takes its toll. That's why failures of the flesh exist in the first place. Like,
yeah.
But track 3, we have The Forgotten One. What is this talking about?
So this is probably the hardest one on the track for me emotionally. One of the most hard ones, if not the hardest. There's even an audio clip in there from an actual video that I have, or had, I should say. I any memories of this I've deleted off my phone at this point now, but I had saved this video specifically for this purpose. You know, during the breakdown or pre-breakdown, it was an audio clip from an actual conversation with someone where I had asked them, you know, how can I ever trust you again, from a certain situation they had done, and I had, for lack of better words, to keep it 2024, I got the receipts for the screenshots, everything, and that you can't anymore, and just deflecting the situation.
Yeah.
It was a very rough one for me. You know, the breakdown itself was probably one of the most heartfelt heartbreaks I've ever felt in my life. You know, lyrically it was, you know, I'm sorry I wasn't enough. No matter what I gave, I wasn't worthy of your love, and this is the price that I'll pay. And
Real shit.
and the chorus even plays right into that. Buried with your taste, my black heart is still beating, and I'm forever entranced by the ache until my skin stops shedding, until I shed this off of me and become a different version of myself, and shed all this grime that I soaked up over the years, invested in this situation that I needed to get away from. And it was a very personal one. Very, 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 very personal one.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even going to initially talk about it, like not necessarily on this podcast, but in general. But the more I thought about it, and I consulted some people that were close to me, they were like, I think you should get this out of your system and get it out there. It's been plaguing you for now, and it's something that you need to do. And it was definitely probably one of the heavier things I've written and felt.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I really do appreciate you deciding to share that, because I know it's difficult. I mean, dude, I know that when I get the Error EP out, and then that Error EP following into because I don't give a fuck. It's the name set in stone. The track listing is the only thing I have yet to set in stone. The album will be called Dead Years, ladies and gentlemen. That's been in the working progress since 2020. I have most of the track listing figured out. Really, it's just the fact of getting committed and consistent musicians, then getting them to also pool in some of their financial resources under an LLC. That's the plan, until basically a label's like, hey, you want to join, you want to be buddies with this band and this band, why don't you join the dark side, that type of shit. It's like, until that point, I have at least 10 albums planned. I have them named. I have their overall themes figured out. So I don't mind dropping the name Dead Years. Now,
Right.
if any stupid motherfucker, like, especially who happens to listen to any of the bands or associated with this podcast, and I see someone name their track Dead Years, I'm coming for you, kid. Like, leave my shit alone. But and other than that, it's like, it's meant to reflect upon all the time I feel that I've wasted throughout junior high school, and even up to now, not getting the fucking album done in the first place. It's like all the years, all the time before was dead to me. It's going to be dead to me. All the time that I pretended to be someone I was not, pretended and lied about loving my father when I didn't, because I fucking hate his guts. There's so much shit emotionally, and it's really the reason that I use this podcast also to people the way I do. Anyways, enough about blind Infectorium people. Come on. But the Forgotten One, I also like to think, lyrically speaking, just kind of toying with the word, the language that you have going on. The Forgotten One is also you attempting to shed the failed flesh, past tense.
Yep.
So, yeah, love that shit. And again, we think very, very similarly. Like, we both have a beard. He's a lot more handsome than me because, obvious reasons. But we think very similarly. Track 4, which is pretty self-explanatory. I know what this is about. But for the sake of, well, if we go over to the Spotify, you got 22 monthly listeners. Motherfucker, you should have at least $4,000 by now. Or $4,000, 4,000. That's bullshit. This is why we're doing this podcast, because you motherfuckers don't know what you're missing. Anyways, track 4, we got Nocturnal Goddess. Which, what is this talking about, bro? If it ain't already obvious.
So it's probably not as obvious as you think it is. To be completely honest, because it actually touched a couple subjects. And the main thing that this one was about lyrically was about obviously, like, having these issues, particularly like late at night. That's when most people have issues, like thinking about their lives and traumas and et cetera, and they start getting really heavy in their head and thinking about shit. And that's kind of where that came from, is the Nocturnal Goddess playing in my head again, you know. It was more so about people that I grew up with. I won't say parents because that's a very subjective term. So, you know, like right off the rip, the first lines coming into this, you know, are, "I won't suffer this anymore. Home is where the heart is. You showed me the door." You know, I felt very, very abandoned from a young age, and it really fucked me up, like growing up the way that I did. But it also made me a stronger person in the long haul, I feel like, because I'm able to be independent now, and not have that codependency on anybody and not feel like I need somebody. It's just nice. You know, and once again, like, this one was actually a really heavy one emotionally, lyrically, you know. The pre-breakdown, you know, I saw visuals of who I was and what I've become. It's fucking pitiful. I wonder, do you still think of me because you're plaguing my dreams? And once again, like coming back into the nocturnal thoughts and shit. Even the end of the song, you know, was very heavy for me because it was meaningful in the sense of like, I'm done with this. This is where it's going, you know. But you know, I'll bury these problems down deep until these problems will bury me. It's time to break these chains and take back my life. It's time for me to let go of this shit. Everything that's holding me back, everything that's holding me down and anchoring me down emotionally, it was time to just let it go. I didn't need to think about it anymore. I didn't need to be a part of it mentally anymore. I needed to grow from the situation, both from the other subject matter involved where I wrote a bunch of this about, and from the way I grew up and shit. And that's a whole ass, like, I could do a whole podcast about that. So I'm not even gonna get into that whole fucking rabbit hole of jumping into that shit. So we just won't go there. But it was a pretty meaningful sentiment behind it, you know, like what I was going for with it.
Right. I mean, honestly, how deep does the rabbit hole go?
I mean,
This is your time, dude.
damn, dude, that's a rough one. That's a rough one. I mean, I'll put it in context for you just as simply spoken as I possibly can. My birthday was Thursday, and neither one of them fucking called me. So that tells you anything.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way street, you know. It's always an excuse. It's always something, and you know, it's like I said, there was a meaning behind the date that it was released. The date that it was released was a particular date that mattered to an individual particularly. And my birthday of last year, my birthday week, I don't know if you remember when I had that hearse, the caddy, and my hearse, my ex had forged my name off the title while I was at work, despite the fact that, you know, I had money for her to pay off her half of it. Not gonna get super heavy into that, whatever. Got repoed while I was at work. I just left a project that was getting pretty serious because of some drama that was going on, and both of my parents tried to kill themselves. So all on my birthday week of last year. So I don't have good memories associated with this time of year typically.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of why this was so important for this to come out on the 19th, because it was like, nope, this is happening. It's coming out on this date, because if said person ever sees that date, they know what it means and they know why I fucking did it. And that it's neither here nor there.
Right.
It also marks the 1 year anniversary of the last time my last major relationship and myself, particular individual, had spoken. And 6 months later they got married, despite the fact that we were trying to work things out. So very personal EP.
Yes.
You're getting a lot of shit out of me that I don't normally fucking talk about. So
And again, I appreciate you sharing, because I mean, we've more or less we have talked about a good portion of this because despite our distance and whether it has to do with the fucking podcast or not, we've gotten very close because we knew that we have a path to share in the first place, both as brothers and artistic collaborators. And for every conversation that we've had where it's been me and you just sharing this like very, very personal shit, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to continue making brothers along the way, on a more like a more raw note personally for me, and to kind of emphasize my gratitude, dude. All the brothers that I've had along the way who have just like kind of fucking just done stupid shit, so I've had to cut them off. They probably even listen to this podcast still, which, you know, hey, hi. But you're definitely staying over there wherever you are.
Trying.
Yeah, like it's been very difficult being someone who is as supportive, naively optimistic. That's always a term I use because it is. It's a naive, almost Disney level optimism. The same optimism that like had characters like Flynn Rider become so iconic because they were more realistic in those films, right?
Right.
Quite literally, I try to live my life like a Disney movie because growing up, my life kind of felt like a World War II documentary. And that's not to compare it to Nazis and the Jews or anything like that, but just to describe it and compare it as being grim. Please, nobody get the wrong idea. I'm not comparing my very privileged, very fucking white, very okay life to Nazis killing Jews and actual genocide. Just saying it was grim. It was very grim, and it was basically a facade. But anyways, I've lost a lot of brothers along the way, not dead, but just having to cut paths with them because they want to do stupid shit. So it's been really refreshing to have someone like you who's come along the way and who's kind of like entered in at the right time. And we're like, hey, we both did this and this and this. We like this and this and this. You want to work together? Yeah, let's fucking do it. And we've been talking ever since. Like me and Finn, people, we're fucking tight, and we're making some plans to meet in person because like I can't handle it anymore, bro. I need to give this dude a hug. Like, need to give this dude a hug, share a beer or 15 with him, go up north, go up into the woods, like you fucking name it, dude. Or I definitely want to make it happen sometime this year.
Disappear into the void.
Disappear into the void. Exactly. The void that is False Giant Point up in Black Canyon Lake or something like that. But dude, it's I'm grateful that you've been willing to share this because I think this will also gravitate a lot more authentic, raw, and people who are just, they're willing to be vulnerable. They're willing to like have their walls down and maybe speak about things in their music the same way you're doing with this EP. I think it will bring a lot more authentic people into your crowd, and therefore, you know, it might just help blossom a full garden, a full flower bed worth of different, you know, different flowers, the flowers being the people, and just raw, like, you know.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
So track 5. This is absolutely my favorite track on the EP, by the way.
Wretched.
This is my favorite.
That's everybody tells me that, dude, and like
It's so good.
It's my favorite too. So like that makes me feel good that I'm like, all right, I knew I hit one with this one.
Yeah. So we have track 5, Tears of the Wretched. What is this one about?
So this one, it's kind of me taking the blame for a lot of shit, but also like once again like taking that accountability. You know, this is once again another excerpt that I put, you would say, towards the end of like the summary of this album.
Yeah.
The line, you know, I'm the fucking disease you didn't want, but the one you need. Bury me in your veins.
Yeah.
You know, this song was very, maybe you didn't need what I had at the moment, but I left my mark. It's very, I was this person's scapegoat for a lot, you know. There was a lot of shit that I talked about in this song actually, and a lot of it's almost damning myself. Essentially, it's damning myself for like this whole situation. But also at the same time, like this was what I was trying to do. I was trying to fucking bring out this part of this person, you know, and make things better. I mean, point proven, like, you know, like the lines, "Let me breathe, my sole purpose here was to breed and fill you up with my disease." You can view it however you want. You can view me however you fucking want. But like, if you view me as a disease, then I'm just trying to fill you with my disease, whether you view it as positive or negative or whatever, you know. And the fucking lines, you know, "I'm the decay in your bones, the rotting roots spreading through these tones. I am the decay rotting away in this name of agony." I can't, like, even the breakdown, like everyone, not the breakdown necessarily, but like the monologue where it was like almost spoken word, and it had that like Dima Borgiri kind of vibe to it that everybody was like geeking out about, you know. It was a very heavy thing actually, and this particular verse I had used before. I won't say published, so I reused it, but it was relevant, you know. "You can beg for this to stop. This wasn't the fate that you asked for. You strayed off this path and bit the fruit just to see these gates. Now witness the end of the vile plague that humanity has brought for centuries. It'll flash and imprinting on your feeble minds as the trumpets have been blown." You know, just like going back and like just hammer after hammer after hammer of like, we've been fucking up. We've been fucking up. We've been fucking up, like repetitively. The last two lines on that before it goes to the end breakdown at the end of the song, or the last four lines, were "Your fragile being dissolves, there's no turning back now, towards the embers you'll crawl, and this veil has been lifted." Like, and then go straight into the breakdown, which was "As death compels, you broke the seal. I am the hell, witness pain in this pure devastation." Like, it was very damning in that sense of like, I have always viewed myself as a very wretched person because I've been made to feel like that by family, by friends in the past, by ex relationships. And like, the people that have actually taken the time to get to know me have taken the time to know that like, maybe you're not as bad as you think you are. Maybe you're just a very broken person. Maybe you're just a very emotionally broken person, and you had a very traumatizing fucking life, and maybe you need to take time to like really break this down and like get this out of your system, and do what you need to do. And it's ironic because that's my favorite song on the fucking album to date, and probably one of my favorite songs I've ever tracked, because that was my way of like breaking down everything. It was like, yes, I'm wretched, and these are the tears I'm shedding for it. This is the pain that I have endured. This is who I am as a person. I'm wretched, but like, I'm still in pain. And that's basically the best way I can.
Yeah, that's the best way you can paraphrase it, which is that works. That's completely fine because it plays with the words. Everybody loves when you can continue upon the dialogue. You can continue upon the vocabulary that's used in the song name itself, and can just continue manipulating it. Right? That's lyricism. So Tears of the Wretched, solid track. I mean, obviously the rest of them are too, but Tears of the Wretched just stands out for me. You know. Track 6, we got Martyrs. This is the last track of Infectorium's first EP. What is this talking about?
Martyrs is basically just the acceptance of things. You know, the acceptance of like, this could be the end, it could not be the end, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
the core, you know, separate, macerate, I'll end this pain and choose my fate. Taking a hard glance through these broken eyes as we embrace this fragile dance in our meaningless lives. Like, there's just so much in this. It was really hard. This was the last one we recorded, I believe. And it was a very, very heavy thing for me, because it was just like, you know what? This if I go tomorrow and I'm a martyr for someone else's fucking trauma or pain, that this is the way it's going to be. You know, like, even the outro to it was actually kind of interesting. Like I did something a little different, that little goblin-y outro to the song, you know. I hope you can feel this, the mental decay, devoid of the light, mentally cruel, pleading for the end, awaiting the bleed, as we force our broken smiles under the shattered glass, we say our final goodbyes to this fucked up world. And it was basically just the acceptance of like, if this accept it, and like I'm, you know, day to day, I never know. You know, I could fucking get up tomorrow and drive to one of my jobs and get fucking in a car wreck. I could all sorts of shit. I mean, you know, one of the situations that happened recently, you know, I had somebody come into the shop and threaten the entire the gun, you know, and not a pleasant feeling and not a pleasant situation, but it's never predictable. And everything in life, whether we want to admit it or not, everything in life in a situation like that, we are always a martyr for somebody at that point. You know, we are sacrificing a part. Like if someone had a bad day, let's say, let's speak for context here. Like, you know, let's say for instance, take a fucking serial killer. They had a bad fucking childhood. So they're going out and killing these people because they're trying to compensate for fucked up shit and traumas in their childhood. So therefore, all these people that they killed became martyrs for this individual at that point to try to compensate for that. And that's kind of the way that I took that, was like, if these people want to continue to use me and abuse me and treat me like shit or whatever the situation is, I've become a martyr for whatever trauma it is that's induced this to begin with. And whether I accepted the fate or not, you know, is a different story. Whether I wanted it to be like that to begin with is another story. But regardless, that was what was going on. And that was kind of my way of like compartmentalizing that in my head, was like, you know what, this sucks. I don't want to be a martyr for someone anymore. I don't want to be a scapegoat anymore. I want to move forward with my life. And even if that means I have to put on a fucking fake smile and pretend like everything has ever been okay in my life, you know, and
Right.
continue on, for lack of better words. And that's basically what that boils down to in a nutshell. It's a weird analogy.
No.
It's a weird analogy of the way I've tried to break this down to people. Like it's so hard. Like my roommates, very supportive, love what I do. You know, they get a kick out of it every time I come back, and I'm like, oh, I did something new, and they're like, oh, sweet, what is it? You know, like not really their vein of music personally, but you know, they're very supportive of it, and I'm super jazzed that like certain people can relate. And when I share lyrical content with them, like one in particular really relates really hard, more so than the other, and is always like, dude, that hits me in ways that like I can't even put into words at this point right now. And that's really why I've started doing music to begin with, was because of that. Because I remember growing up and listening to certain bands and certain songs, and I'm like, I relate to this. Like, what the fuck? You know, like someone else feels this way. Like, and I didn't feel quite so alone. So that's kind of why I started doing this and like touching on certain subjects. Like, you know, we live in a very stigmatized society. Nobody wants to talk about mental health. Nobody wants to talk about abuse, you know, and unless it's, you know, in a subject matter that fucking, you know, promotes whatever end of the fucking spectrum they fucking fall on. Nobody wants to talk about it. And the point of this that I'm getting at is like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what either end of it you come from. None of that shit's relevant. Abuse is abuse. Getting treated like shit is getting treated like shit. Growing up and having traumas is growing up and having traumas. How you choose to handle that, that's what falls on you.
Yeah.
You know? And that's why I chose the musical outlet and the artistic outlet in many shapes and forms, because it made sense. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life like taking these traumas and taking them out on people and shit, and walking around with a chip on my fucking shoulder all the time. And like, there's still certain things that are very touchy with me, to where I'll clam up and dissociate. I'm like, you know what? Nope, we're done talking. And I'm just out.
Yeah.
You know? And sometimes I feel like I dodged a bullet, and sometimes I feel like I could have handled it better. You know, sometimes I was right and sometimes I was wrong, but that's the most important thing that I think a lot of people forget, is like, people are people. Behind that picture, that profile picture, that name, whether it's their real name or a stage name, content name, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, they're still a person, and they've had a life. And when it really comes down to it, at the end of your life, the only thing that we really have is what we're remembered for: 2 dates and a dash.
Yeah.
Dash represents so many years, experiences, memories that they can't chisel on a fucking piece of rock. And that's why this meant so much to me to do this album, you know?
Yeah.
And
No, I know
why I keep doing this shit.
exactly. Like since at least 2016, when my favorite band in the world, Silent Planet, released an album called Everything Was Sound, I started digging more into it, learned about the kaleidoscope, learned about the what is it? Fuck. Now I gotta look this up because apparently I'm a fake Silent Planet fan or Silent Planet fan. Panopticon, right? So we talked about a whole bunch of things. They condensed all the major mental health disorders and issues into a color wheel that was also a panopticon, which was a symbol of a new age prison system that they were trying to experiment with back when they were giving people LSD to see how they would react. And mind you, Nazi scientists were giving them the fucking LSD because Operation Paperclip. Learned so much from this band. It's not even funny. But most importantly, the golden ratio. The golden ratio and the fact that everything that we understand right now is just very, very complicated sound waves. Everything is of vibration. It is of sound. Everything was sound at one point. So then it really warmed my heart understanding that statement and understanding why music connects us all, no matter what sentience you are, most likely no matter what planet you're from, no matter what galaxy you're from, music connects us all. It connects us in different ways. And here on Earth, we classify that as genres, subgenres, communities, occultic band followings, idols over in Japan, pop stars like Beyonce, rappers like Drake, or, you know, there's just so much that music can be just here on Earth that, well, it's almost infinite, the possibilities of what you can do with music, of what you can create with music. So I always think back on that album, and I always think back on that statement, everything was sound. And well, one thing that a musician will always crave is that they at least find one person who's like, wow, I listened to this track and I really related to it. I connected with it. That sometimes when you don't have that good of luck in a romantic relationship sense, when you're not exactly keen on chemistry, or you just don't really have that good of luck, well, instead of chemistry, instead of chivalry and romanticism, you instead have music, you have art that will help you connect probably to so many more people than a romantic relationship ever will. But the reason is because, well, sound can be shared with absolutely anyone and everyone. Romantic relationships, intercourse, you know, all that fun stuff, all the dirty deeds. You can't exactly share that with everyone because, well, it's shunned by society for the most part, except for, you know, certain situations in which then there's no wall, there's no boundaries, there's no limits, but it gets really, really dangerous and it gets really evil and cruel real fucking quick. Well, music has never been the sole cause, the sole root of anything truly evil. I think Mayhem and Burzum was the closest thing. And even then, I could also mention Charles Manson because, you know, him and his Charles Manson cult, the family, sure, they made music. And dude, they basically made the same shit as the Beatles, yet they were psychopaths. Like, dude, imagine.
like, yeah, no, that's a whole funny thing to me. Like, just like, even musically, the difference in like what people perceive to be good from evil, it's all perception.
It's all
It's all
perception.
perception. I mean, what you choose to do, like, let's say my EP gets heard by, I don't know, 4,000 people. Each one of those people is going to have a different perception of it than what the last one had. They may have a different line that speaks to them, or a different song that speaks to them, or, you know, a different feeling from said song or whatever that speaks. And it's all about perception. And like, it was the same way. It's the same way with, I can't say it was, it is still the same way with like any other medium of art that I do, whether it be painting, digital art, tattooing. Everything means something to someone. You know, I may look at a design someone brings in, I'm like, this is fucking goofy. But for all I fucking know, I don't know. It could have been someone that was close to them that fucking drew this shit, and they're no longer with us. So I try everything from that perspective of like, you know, it may not mean anything to me, but it may mean the world to them. So that's what fucking matters.
Exactly.
And that's been one of my biggest things musically, why I've stayed on the route that I've gone, like, because this is what matters to me. It may not matter to everyone else, but it matters to me. I can sit back. I'm getting this album pressed on vinyl. I may never sell a single fucking piece of merch. I may never sell anything. I may never make a dime off of anything I ever do musically. But I will have every album and EP that I put out on vinyl, at least for myself, just to sit back and reflect on that.
Yeah.
And reflect on that time frame where I was able to do something that I felt accomplished by.
Exactly. No, it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's the best thing in the world when, I mean, dude, I think I daydream about daydream, or I
You daydream about day drinking?
Red flag. No. I daydream about dead years, and I have daydreamed about dead years, getting that album finished and possibly getting it out through a record label since at least 2018. I've held on to that shit. And then instead of just giving up on it because nothing has happened, I'm like, okay, well, if I don't have the resources financially to hire musicians or get into a studio, have the know-how to where I can save money myself and instead invest that same money into merch, right? Instead, I'm like, you know what? Let's plan even farther ahead. Let's get 10 different concept albums ready to go. Not even including self-titled EPs, volume 1, 2, 3, 4, as certain members might kind of cycle in and out, tell their story, put that on a Renaissance painting album cover done by Keelan Stokermans. It's like, you got to have ambition. You got to have ambition. You got to have passion to do this. And sometimes losers like me don't get anything done for a long fucking time. Not until they really take other aspects of life seriously. And then, like I said, music connects us all. Once people feel that passion, it's like orbit, dude. Everything's slowly pulled together. And then, well, eventually, it's just cycling within itself, right?
Sure.
That's cosmic law, basically. But I digress. Where I feel I should, I guess, because me and Finn both are ADHD as fuck, and I know we can go into so many fucking tangents, possibly even lose track of what the hell we're trying to passionately talk about. And that's the thing too. Finn has an advantage over me. He has like the energy right now. He has the gusto because he gets to talk about his shit. I just happen to be the guy who's been here the whole time. I've been doing this for a long time. So I'm like, yeah, music. We all love it. We all connect to it. It's universal shit, man. Like start getting Tommy Chung, just like, yo, it's a part of the universe, man. Like you can't get away from it, but there's no need to get away from it, man. Because music connects us all. Music is love, but music can also be hate. Music it can be fucked up, man. And Cheech like, yo, you want to pass the blunt or what? I fucking dude, not gonna lie, I've enjoyed playing. I've enjoyed being able to play as early Cheech and Chong, Tommy Chong and Cod. You're getting shot at. He's like, "Whoa, man, incoming fire!" Like that shit's so great.
Yeah. I had posted something earlier on my Instagram story, and like instead of asking questions, like ask me to do impersonations.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, like I got a few people hitting me up about it, you know, and like I need to get back to some of them at some point, probably tonight or tomorrow. But
I
that was
definitely left one for you.
what's that?
I left one for you.
You left one for me?
Yeah,
I'll do it right now. What is it?
me.
You? Oh, that's what it is. Dude, don't make me fucking do that. So part of the reason that I think we vibe so much is because when I was like 16, 15, 16, even 14, we had this friend named Jimmy. Well, for context, we'll call him Jimmy Locksmith. That was his stage name. He was a really huge music enthusiast. Did a lot of spoken word. Never really got anything to take off for him. I still talk to him to this day, since I was like 14. I mean, we're talking like it's been a long time. Still really good buddies. He would get, I wouldn't say manic, but he would get heavy in thought and like I can't do this without doing a physical impersonation of this too. Like and Jimmy, if you fucking see this, like you're gonna know, because I'm gonna send him this link just for this clip right here, because it's just what he would do. We'd be on the back porch and he would be like cigarette in mouth, just like, you know, back and forth, and it's like, Jimmy, what's up? And he'd stop, he'd take another hit. Like, you ever notice how the color purple is just so purple? It's like, it would be like the most ridiculous shit you would ever hear when he was manic. I don't even know if I would call it that, but like there's something about his personality that's similar to your personality, to where I'm like, this reminds me of home. Like basically where I essentially grew up as a teenager, and like it makes me fucking happy, because it's like I feel like it wouldn't surprise me if some shit like that came out of your mouth one of these days. Like, you know, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, but I wanted you to think that whatever you thought that you knew, I already think that you thought that I thought you think. You know, like some fucking off the wall. Oh man, you're muted again. You're muted again. I didn't get any of that laughing. That you're muted, and I didn't get any of that fucking laughing at all. Not a hair.
I'm back.
But no, like it's a similar personality type. Like in like his passion for like music and stuff was very similar to yours. Like he would break down everything. Like I remember sitting in his living room. We used to call it the dungeon because it was down in a basement. It was in Florida. If you want to call it a basement, because Florida doesn't have basements, but the rest of the house,
they have swamp coolers because there's a fucking fridge in it.
the rest of the house is up on stilts because, you know, hurricanes and shit. And I spending so much time with him and his brother, his older brother or younger brother, sorry, down there when I was a teenager. And like I remember watching videos, like it was like some of the tour videos from like Mushroom Head when I was like 15, 16 years old. And he's just like breaking everything down like the best that he can, like just talking about it in depth. And then he was such an interesting guy. I need to link you two up at some point. Actually, I feel like you would have a fucking you two would have a dope ass conversation. Like for real. But it reminds me of home, so it's like that's kind of why I laugh sometimes when we're hanging out and like talking and like video chatting or like voice clipping. Is like because it reminds me of Jimmy, and like that's the best way I can put it. Is like this was probably one of the most influential people on me growing up as a kid and as a teenager, and probably like one of the most solid and sound motherfuckers I've ever met. Actually, to be honest, like there's probably a lot of things in my life that I owe credit to that man for, especially getting over the stage fright, and getting up on a stage and shit, you know, forcing me at like 16, 17 years old to play shows with a band that I was in, you know, in some fucking basement of a fucking youth group church. Like, oh, it was crazy, dude. Like,
feels like it's going full circle or something. Like, you know,
no, like it feels like it because like, dude, I've been doing the music shit on and off since I was like 14, and like, dude, some of the first shows I played were in not that any of us were like religious, but like, you know, like churches. We would go play in the church because it was a venue. Yeah, you know, 15 years old playing at some girl's 16th birthday party. I didn't even do vocals at the time. I played drums. Like, it was interesting. And then like fast forward a few years, 18, the same venue, essentially bigger fest. We used to call it Shrimp Festival for obvious reasons, shrimps. But 18 years old and playing guitar for a metalcore band and doing backup vocals, and like that was probably one of the bigger events that we did. And nerve rattling, loved it. Every bit. I still have pictures of that shit.
That's awesome.
I still have pictures of that shit. I need to get one of them framed.
Do it.
But crazy, dude. Like just everything usually comes in a full circle. And like I feel like I've came in a full circle. You're just like Jimmy's like probably 40-ish now. So you're just like a younger incantation of him.
I am Timmy. I am Timmy too.
He's probably one of the solid motherfuckers I've ever met.
That's cool. That's like that. You mentioning like the ambition, the passion, and like how manic he can be sometimes without meaning to be, but like it's entertaining in a way. I have always aspired to be just like Jim Carrey, like a good combination between Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, because those are like the most positive people I grew up with. And then, that eventually branched into people like Jeff Dunham, Krista Alia, and then that branched into the Goons, which is, just absolute fucking like Adam Sandler comedy in like fucking Rainbow Siege clips and shit. That really got me out of a dark place. And I learned very quickly that comedy and just making people laugh, and even if you seem like a fucking idiot sometimes, like, dude, as long as you're making other people laugh and as long as you're a good person and, you're not pulling pranks that actually hurt people or traumatize people, then, dude, do you. Be a fucking jester, be a joke to some, but then be the silver lining to others. I think that's a pretty good line. Be a joke to some, be the silver lining to others, because you don't know how deep people can be into a depression.
Oh, for sure. And that was one of the things about Jimmy too. Even when he was an adult and we were teens, like me and my little brother of sorts, like he always tried to guide us, and like he's never failed to tell me every chance he fucking gets, like him and like a few of the other homies that grew up, that were older than us, that grew up around us and shit, that are like, dude, out of everyone in the fucking friend group, man, like, like you're fucking doing it. Like you're doing the things that you want to do and you're fucking doing it. And I've always had that reinforcement from family that wasn't family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've always had that reinforcement, and like I love that it was there. It brings back so many fucking floodgates of fucking memories, like me, him, and my brother hanging out. The first time these assholes ever got me fucking drunk, and I was puking in the backyard, and my brother, he's like a little squeaky fuck. He's like, just remember, man, it's not beer's fault, it's your fault. like you shouldn't drink so much beer, stupid.
Like a South Park character.
literally. And I think he's still doing music shit. He was actually the metalcore band I was talking about, 18. He was the drummer of that band.
Okay.
Like we did a lot of touring. It was some of the first touring experience I had when I was 18, and it was crazy, man. Like that was when I knew like this is what I wanted to do. The rest of like, I don't care about being crammed in a van with 4 or 5, 6, 7 other fucking dudes sweating our nuts off, going to the next city. I don't care about sharing a fucking hotel bed with 3 other fucking dudes, like whatever. That's what happened when we went on tour. My brother ended up getting tossed off the bed and landed on his back. And he's like, "You guys are dicks. I was just trying to cuddle with you and show you you're being a trash can." Like we had a really good time, like I think at the time because he's a year younger than me, like almost exactly. Like his birthday's the 1st, mine is the 2nd. He was like 17 when we did this tour, and I think Arthur and Steven were 16. Our vocalist was the oldest one out of all of us, and he was like 20, 21, and then I was 18. So we're just a bunch of fucking young, dumb shits fucking loading up a fucking van and a fucking U-Haul trailer and like, all right, we're gonna go do a tour. Like, no fucking money at all. No fucking money at all. Each one of us, I think, had $100 to our fucking name.
Oh my god,
dude, it was so stressful. We were up until like 5 a.m. before we played Rotunda Fest down in Rotunda, Florida. We were up till 5 a.m. burning demo CDs on a laptop. This is 07.
yeah.
Burning demo CDs. We didn't have a fucking demo cover for the CD cases, no cases. So we were folding paper to make these CD cases and drawing our name on it and shit. And like each one of them had a little excerpt on the inside of it. It was like, you know, the Taco Bell fucking sauces. Each one was like different. So it was like, I don't know, like our roadie at the time, he was like our good friend Rob was like writing goofy shit, was like, wash your hands before you touch yourself. And just like dumb shit like that. Like, like this is the dumbest shit. I wish I still had one of those EPs, one of those demos. It was only 3 songs, but like I wish I still had one for nostalgia purposes.
Right.
I doubt any of those fucking songs even exist anymore on any platform. But it just, oh god, dude, that reminds me of like, even tracking the shit at the studio. The fucking dude that was like best friends with fucking Jimmy that like tracked our stuff, you know, just sitting there chain smoking. He's like, this is like 2007, so like, you know, My Chemical Romance and shit like that is super popular. Just him getting all worked up, like, My Chemical Romance is not fucking punk, bro. Not fucking punk, right? You know, like just so worked up about the silliest shit. When we look back at stuff like that, I look back at that 17 fucking years later. You know, I look back at that and I still think about this shit.
I mean, that makes so much sense, really. So one thing I can say that I'm really proud of is that I managed to keep my first ever concert ticket. It's up there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. If you've ever heard the band Breathe Carolina, it's signed by the entirety of the band.
I know exactly who that is.
Yeah. No, that was those are different times for sure. And then like, you know, I have the Chelsea Grin signed poster that's like right behind my one nice button-up shirt that I didn't want to crumple up and shit. But I mean, I look back on a lot of the experiences I've had so far, and whether it be me getting thrown midair, like flying midair across the middle of the main venue we have here in town, the Now Theater, all the experiences I've had there, all of the bands and people, including yourself, that I've met, I'm like, yo, not only am I wanting to be a musician and be in a band really bad, but I want to like get to know all of these musicians on a personal level. And you get a little bit older and you learn about the dirt going on behind the scenes. You learn about you learn about the dark secrets. I'm like, nah, fuck that, dude. Expose all of it and make sure that our community is filled with good people. That way we don't have to deal with this like counter culture skepticism where it's like, yeah, I mean, you know, most deathcore, metalcore vocalists, they're monsters on stage, but they're teddy bears off stage, blah, 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 blah. Like, I remember a time when that's all that I knew. And then I started learning about the drama. I started learning about like the bigger artists and how some of them have pretty dark secrets. And like, nah, fuck that. Nobody should be having secrets in a counterculture community. Dude, the last time that we had secrets in the counterculture community was with the Manson family. Like, come on, dude. Be better.
Well, and that's one of the things too. That's why I'm so open about a lot of shit, because like I have nothing to hide from anybody.
Neither do I. Like, dude, I have a black and orange search history. Who gives a fuck? I'm 24 years old. Hype off my dick, bro.
Like the hub.
Exactly. Yeah. I have no shame in admitting that I have a search history with that. Like, and you shouldn't be afraid to admit those things. You shouldn't. Nobody, I don't think, should be afraid to admit that.
Well, the thing is we're all fucking human, and like I think where a lot of this comes from is like one person somewhere started that they felt some kind of way about this particular person doing something that, let's say, for instance, that they felt some kind of way about it. They post about it online. It gets perpetuated, and it's like, do you remember like as a kid when you were in like elementary school, they would have one person tell you a secret, and then the next person tell you a secret, and it passed along the chain, and things get convoluted and fucking warped and twisted.
over time that like it becomes an issue out of nothing, literally. You know, and we live in a very, very interesting timeline.
We do.
This-
Yeah.
One of the weirdest times I've ever experienced, because like, I mean, there was still shit like this going on when I was, you know, a teenager and in my early 20s and shit. There was still shit like this going on, and it was still very prevalent all over fucking like, this would have been like MySpace era, you know. So like, it was very, very prevalent and shit, but it was usually, to be completely honest, it was usually seen kids outing each other and doxing each other, like, yeah, was so and so fuck so and so, like, yeah, was so and so cheated on me, like, and like I look back at shit like that even, and I'm like, this was so fucking stupid, and we all played right into it, right into every bit of it. If people would take more time instead of worrying about what the fuck everyone else is doing online, and worry more about what they're doing and being a better version of themselves and being a good person, we wouldn't. I don't think we would have most of the problems we have.
No, I don't think so either.
You know, like, dude, we all have some fucking skeletons in our fucking closet about something.
Oh yeah.
It could be something so minuscule, but like it's still there. We all have a past, and we all have a present and a future, and that's relevant. You know, and like, I think that it is possible for people to grow from their fucking past. You become a better person, or you become a worse person, or you stay the same.
Yeah.
You know, it's how you choose to grow in life. And I don't know. You know, not all of us are fucking. Well, I mean, none of us are fucking saints. We've all made mistakes.
The most important thing to do, though, is learn how to shed your failed flesh.
Exactly.
And I think that's a good way to end the session for tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, everything possibly in between over on Sean Cross, over on the Orc King YouTube channel, because you fuckers better be subscribed to his channel by now if you're subscribed to mine. You hear me? He's got an EP out. I don't. Like, give him more attention. You know, this dude is making moves. He's making the necessary steps. He's working almost nonstop. It's the reason he hasn't been on the show that often, because he has a fucking life. Dude, I just happen to work from home. Like,
I mean, literally, like,
on God, I happen to work from home. I happen to also edit my YouTube videos from home. And honestly, people, even the Sean Cross thing is getting stale for me. Like, that's a very scary thing to approach. Like, you do enough clickbait reactions, and you're like, yeah, I'm done with this.
yeah, I'm looking forward to the caption on this. Like, he talked about his nipples, you know, or like, nipples metal PBR.
No, not yet. It's PBR sponsors, like
PBR.
fucking
Hey.
Pornhub search history.
If PBR is watching, or Pornhub for that matter, if you're watching, sponsor me. Sponsor me.
Oh my God, that'd be
We'll
so
start putting all my content to Pornhub now.
Upload your EP to the hub, bro.
Yo, I'm gonna do that now.
Yo, if gamers can upload their Fortnite nuke clips and shit, I think you can upload your EP to the fucking hub.
Oh my God.
But okay, I think that's where we're gonna cut it off. Be sure to have a good night, guys. Bye.
Later.